already got 20 people on here. Aren't you guys supposed to be celebrating a federal holiday?
Yeah, the office was closed and I walked
I love
into
this
the
story.
office wondering where everyone was.
Well, we do have a good number of people on the call. I think we should start. What do you think?
Let's go for it.
All right, Mike, I'm going to catch you way off guard here. You even told me a few minutes ago that you did not know what you were going to add to this conversation, but that you were game for it. What is, I don't know, the number one thing that makes someone a good realtor? Where do you start?
I think the number one thing for me would be how to communicate with people.
I agree
And
with you.
a lot of problems stem from lack of communication. And you need to understand when you're working with a buyer or seller, how, in what manner they like to be communicated with, whether it be text message, email, phone calls, and how frequently. And if you don't have that conversation up front, you could be walking down the wrong path. And so communication is right up there for me.
So I agree with you. Communication is the penultimate reason to be a good realtor. You're either a good communicator, or you're getting better, or you're working on it all times, or you have certain processes that help you be a good communicator. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. And I wanted to start in the most simple of ways. I don't think you can be a realtor if you don't have clients or customers. You're dead in the water. All the things you learned in school, all these, Jerry Murphy loves doing his words that work classes, which I think that isn't that the saying, the phrase he uses, words
Yep.
that work. Yeah. Well, you got to be able to have people to talk to. And so I want to give you guys a couple of tips that I use that I think would be really helpful for you. And I don't think enough people are doing it. So if you are, pat yourself on the back a little bit. If not, I want you to try this. And Mike, do you have your phone with you?
Yep.
All right, let's pull that out. All right, so the first thing that I want to go through, and Mike, I showed you the second thing. Let's do the first thing. So go to, this is an iPhone. If you have an Android, I'll have to do another class another time. But if you have an iPhone, pull out your iPhone, go to your contacts, and you're going to go to the top of your list. So this is my contact list. Let's see if I don't think the camera can really find it. And I want to click this top thing right here, Mike. It has your name on it, right? And it should say My Card. Does yours have your name on it?
Yep.
All right, so click on that. And what does it say? It has your name. Does it have your phone number and email? In my case, I've got, I wish this camera would listen to me. Let's see if it will.
It's interesting, Christian. Mine has my phone number, it has my home address, but it has an address I don't recognize.
All right, so I think step one would be go to the top and edit and fix what this is. So everyone should do that. On mine, I've got my work address, I've got my email, I've got my work number, and I've got my cell number. And then I also, at the top here, did I did a logo. And you could put a picture of yourself, you could just have your name, whatever you decided to do would be fine. In my case, I have our Ross Title, and I think it might be backwards on the camera, but I have a Ross Title, Ross Law logo. Now, here's what I want you to do, Mike. Tell me when you're ready to that you've kind of cleaned it up, even just a little bit. Make sure, in the very least, make sure your number is on there and your name is right.
I can tell you right now, I'm not going to show you my screen.
That's fine, no worries.
I'm trying. Let's see what we got here.
All right, so as Mike kind of fixes his, and you can push edit and you can fix it and you push done. This is the next thing I want you to push, and this is what did they call it? Contact photo and poster. And so this is where you can change exactly how your phone is going to look like to other people. And the first thing you need to do is click this enable button. This green button needs to be green. So that says name and photo sharing. You can put your name, and in fact, you can change all of this. So you can have your name on there, make sure it's right. I put it where it shares it for contacts. But you could also change it where always ask, if you want to share contacts or share your name with everybody. So that's what your screen should look like. And you see how my phone is showing the different kind of views that people will see. Now, keep in mind, it's backwards because of the camera. But when someone gets a phone call from me, this is kind of what they're going to see. They're going to see my logo, they're going to see my name, they're going to know the logo and name. It kind of, it looks a little silly on my phone right now, but I can promise you it looks pretty professional. It's really nice. Tammy, I see you had a question. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Oh, there we go. Could you tell us how to get to that again? I'm on
Yeah,
my
I'll show
card,
you
but
one more time.
okay.
Absolutely. So in my contacts, and you can do it through your phone, like through the phone contacts. So if you click the phone app and then go to contacts,
Okay.
you'll see right here at the top is your name or your card. And then it's this one right under. I'll do it a little slower. It's this right here. Let's see if I can.
Do I click on my card?
Yeah, click on my
go.
card, and then you're going to click on the contact, poster, and what is it? Photo and poster. That's what it is.
There we go. Okay.
So you click on that, and then you enable it. Make sure it's enabled. And you can edit it. You can change it. You could put a picture of yourself. You could put a logo. You could put your broker name, whatever it may be, to show that. Now,
Thank you.
I think that's really cool, and it's really the basics of communication. I want anyone that has gotten a call from me, anyone that's texting me, I want them to have the correct name, correct phone number, email address, address. I want them to have my correct information, because otherwise, that's not very helpful. Not very helpful at all. In fact, now I'm noticing that's another thing that's not very helpful is my camera's not focusing.
That worked pretty well for me, Christian. I got to figure out how to get my picture up there, but other than that, it looks pretty good.
Good. And so the next step is you'll start to notice that when you start texting with people or calling people, they'll have the opportunity to update their picture of you. It'll just automatically. So if they have your name spelled wrong, if they have your brokerage wrong, if they do any of that stuff, it really can make a big difference. I'm gonna turn my camera off real quick and turn it back on.
So I can't use my high school picture anymore, huh?
Well, some realtors do. Some realtors do. Let's see. It's silly. Now I've messed up my camera again. There we go. Right, there we go. Perfect. All right, so that's step one. I love that step. I think everyone should be doing it. There are other options that you can do. There's this other thing that I have on my phone called Blink. Do you know Adam Villano, Mike?
Yeah, very well.
Yeah, he's great. He's the Compass broker here in Naples. He led me on to this company called Blink, BLINQ. And so if someone takes out their phone and they do a QR scanner and they can add all my information automatically into their phone, that's kind of cool. You can also send it and you'll get my business card. There's another one, I'm trying to remember what it was called. There are a lot of these apps that will do this, but this is free and it's built into your phone. I think everyone should do that. All right, so this is the second part, is what I showed you yesterday, Mike. So I want you, let's see if I can, now I'm gonna mess up my camera again. This will be fun. All right, here we go. All right, so you can kind of see my camera now. All right, so I'm going to go to my settings and I'm going to go down to general right there in settings. Again, this is the iPhone, so I apologize if you don't have the iPhone. So in general, so settings, general, we are going to go to keyboard about halfway down.
Got it.
And then we're going to go to, at the top, text replacement. So you'll notice these are all the different text replacements that I utilize. I use all of these. And I'll show you kind of how I use them. So first thing I have here is my CPA referral. It's actually the second one. So it's this guy Carmen that I use. He's wonderful. If anyone asks me for a CPA referral, I send them Carmen's information. And it's really easy because if I do like a short phrase to do that. So in this case, the short phrase is Carmen Falbo. And so if I type in Carmen Falbo, and actually I'm going to do this to you, Mike, because you're my guest host here. So I'm going to type in Carmen Falbo. So hopefully Mike hasn't texted me anything bad recently. But you see how I've typed in Carmen Falbo on a text message, and it actually populates, if I push space, his entire contact information. And it actually saves me a lot of time as opposed to sending it to Mike through contacts or sharing the contact or anything like that, because I'm in the text message already, and I just want to be able to say, yeah, here's Carmen's number. Another one that I use, even if you're not doing business, I use this for, I use it for my address. So if someone's asking me, what's my address? I put in 1860. I'm never going to use the numbers 1860 otherwise. So 1860, I push space, and that's my home address. Alternatively, I put in 8950. I'm never going to type 8950 otherwise. So if I type in 8950, I know I'm going to start this address. This is the office address now. So now I've got to my home address, my office address. Even showing you guys, this took me 10 seconds. It's so easy. I really love it. And the thing, and you kind of see how I helped Mike on his yesterday. He types in his initials, MLH. So on his phone, if he types MLH, this is how it populates. Mike Hughes, Downing Fry, Realty, has his email address and has his phone number. For me, I do the same thing. I use my initials. I use CNR, and I've got my name, email, cell phone, and office number. And I'm trying to think what else I use it for. A couple of explanations. So anytime I'm trying to explain our fees, I've got like a simple way that I always explain it in a text if they want it that way. Please review. Oh, this is my favorite. Mike, I'm going to send this to you right now. So I've gotten in the habit of asking for Google reviews. In fact, if any of you could write me a Google review, I'd be over the moon about it. Let's see. Where's Mike Hughes? Mike, have you written me a Google review? I think I need one.
I haven't written one yet.
All right, so I put in please review. Let's see if I can fix this. Please review. And if I push space, it says, would you mind making us a Google review? Here is the link. And so then I push enter, and it populates a link to our Google review page. I just sent it to Mike. So now he's got it.
Awesome. That's
I
pretty
just
cool.
think that is the greatest thing since sliced bread. We've got to see if I can reset this camera. Did you learn something here, Mike? Was that helpful?
Absolutely.
Good.
Actually, right after I received your request for feedback, here we have our first named storm of the hurricane season. That came in right after yours. Breaking news.
Yeah, luckily that one's going to Mexico.
Texas. Right.
Yeah, we'll be okay over there. All right, so hopefully that was fun. Looks like there was a message. Do we choose always ask or contacts only? Jackie, I put contacts only, so it will. I think it'll automatically share it. How does that work? I can't remember exactly how that works. I put contacts only though. I might be wrong. So it says share automatically, and it either says contacts only or always ask. So I put contacts only. So here's the other trick. Mike, can I call you real quick? Just answer it, but don't talk, okay?
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna be talking shortly. And you see if you're the top right here, if you click that, it's a little I immediately go and I send a message while I'm talking to the person.
I think
So-
you called my office number, or is this someone?
Did I really? It doesn't matter, it's okay though.
Try my cell number.
All right, so I'm calling his cell.
All right, got it.
All right, go ahead and answer.
I answered.
All right, we're answering. See that little I with the circle around it? And you can do the same, Mike. You push the I, and then you can push message, or, and I know that it's kind of flaring out a little bit. So let's say I didn't have Mike in my phone at this point. I can add him as a contact down here at the bottom. I can add him to existing, create a new one, or I can just message him. And we're talking right now, we're on the phone. He's on the other line. And as we're talking, I say, hey, I'm going to send you my information. Of course, someone just called me.
I don't
So
have the I.
we are talking, and I push send. You don't have the I, Mike?
I don't see it. No, I've got
should.
the
Should we-
battery,
Show me your phone, Mike. All right, maybe you can't. But you see how I have yours? You may not see it, but it's in the corner. Oh, you don't have the I. What a troublemaker. Oh, well.
maybe you have the latest version. Maybe my iPhone is one version old.
Well, that is for sure. All right, let me see if I can reset my camera again.
I can't believe it. You hung up on me.
Did I really? No. That's pretty normal for you, right?
Unbelievable. You're like Rodney Dangerfield.
No respect. All right, so I would be honored if you guys wrote me a Google review, and if you text me, I'll send you the link for sure. That would be a lot of fun, and I'll do the same for you guys. I like Google because for people that I know, that tends to be where they go. But there's also Facebook, there's Yelp. You could do it for any of those. You just you do the work up front, and then anyone you talk to who says great things about you, say, hey, do you mind doing a Google review for me, and make a big difference. So I think it's, again, goes back to Mike and his advice. You got to be a good communicator. This is where it starts. And if you look at your contacts in your phone, you should have everyone in there. I know my wife has like 40 people in her phone, but she's not a realtor. She's not a lawyer. She's not trying to earn your business. Takes a lot to get into her phone, but for salespeople like yourselves and me, I think you should have as many people as possible in your phone. I think I have 2,200 people in my phone right now, because when you text me or call me, I want to know, hey, Mike, I want that to be the reaction. I don't want it to be, who is this? Who's calling me? Who's texting me? And I talked to you a year ago. I want it to be personal. The other thing you can do is I can add notes for each contact. So if Mike, if you weren't so memorable, I might want to add a few reminders about who you are. Broker at Downing Fry. I'll put your company name. I'll put, you're a realtor in Sarasota or whatever it may be. I think that can be really, really valuable. And then you can search based on those people too. So if you're talking to Craig and you have his name in your phone and you've saved a couple of notes, and it says you put, Quail West or single family home, prospective buyer, then I can search. If I ever come across a listing in Quail West that I think is pretty special or unique, I can just search in my phone Quail West and Craig's name will pop up. I would have forgotten about it otherwise. Again, being a good communicator, all the difference in the world, being timely, keeping those notes. It's the cheapest CRM you've ever had because you got it in your phone already. Pretty cool little gadget. All right, so that's how to be a better realtor. The rest of this stuff is maybe more what we usually do. You ready for me, Mike? You ready for the next steps?
Go for it.
All right, here's the fun one. There was a new case that came out. I'm going to share my screen very quickly here. I don't know if I can. Yeah, I can. Okay. All right, so here's a new case. It just came out June 5th. It is brand new. And I thought it was really interesting for a couple of reasons. One, I went through a similar situation personally. And two, I had a realtor call me yesterday with this exact issue. And it actually helped. So this is McClellan versus Cypress Chase North Condominium. I think this condo is on the other coast, if I were to guess. I can't remember exactly. So here's the important part. McClellan's own a condominium unit within Cypress Chase. In August, they noticed a water leak, but it didn't end there. So the association told appellants that it was their responsibility to repair the damage, as unit owners are responsible for repairs to their own units. That sounds pretty common. That's something people say all the time, right, Mike?
Yep.
Yeah, so let's see if I can spotlight this for us. So that's where it's their responsibility. Including plumbing. Over the next few months, however, other leaks appeared. At first, the association performed no remediation. Then the association contracted to provide remediation to the kitchen area, but not the remainder of the unit. It got worse. Let's see if I can delete that. November, sewage water began pouring into their bathroom, broke light fixtures. The association did not remediate any of the damage to the unit. They filed suit. So this was a pretty extreme example, but it's also kind of what led to this lawsuit. They weren't just one little thing. It was a lot of things, and the association just never did enough. And they kept going back to this idea of, hey, if that damage is inside your unit, that is your fault or your problem. We don't touch that. We'll handle everything else. So they filed responses, so on and so forth. You'd have to read some of this stuff to really see. We're going to go down to the conclusion. Under the association's declaration and the Condominium Act, the association is responsible for all repairs to common elements. When water leaked into appellant's unit from an upstairs unit, the association had the duty to repair the common elements which were damaged, which were the water pipes. So in their condominium covenants, the water pipes were a common element. And when those common elements broke, the association had the duty to repair, even if they claimed otherwise. The court erred in granting summary judgment on the ground that the association had no duty to make the repairs. The cause of the leak was irrelevant to the association's duty to repair. This is a very complex issue, and I'm not exactly sure what we can truly learn from this, except that this stuff happens. It happens all the time, and the association's response is always the same. It's not their duty. In my case, Mike, I don't know if I ever told you this story. My roof was not being maintained. It was a condominium. The roof was not being maintained. And one day it caved into my bedroom. The whole roof caved into my bedroom. And the association, they said, yep, we'll fix the roof, but we will not be fixing your unit. That's your responsibility. And I think this case leads to that, where it's like, whatever they cause, if the common element is absolute their duty to repair, and those damages that come with it are the association's responsibility. And I could have sued, I could have fought them. I chose not to. As long as they fixed the roof, I was willing to do my part. But I think that I could have fought it, and I probably would have won based on some of this stuff. But it's confusing. So we had another case yesterday, and in that scenario, where the toilet was, where it connected to the flange was broken. Now the flange comes from the sewer pipe. It's a part of the pipe, and the toilet just goes on top of the flange, and that's where it secures in. And the association said, well, that's not our responsibility. that is the unit owner, the toilet is leaking. But we were actually, our argument is that, no, the flange is what's broken. And that is a common element because that is part of the sewer pipes per the covenants. And so this is absolutely the association's duty to repair. And so where it got complex was, again, the unit owner was willing to pay the cost of fixing the flange, repairing the toilet or getting it replaced. And then the downstairs unit knocked on their door saying, now you got to pay for my unit repair. And that's where my client, my homeowner, is like, no, we fixed the flange, which is a common element, just to get it done with, but that doesn't mean I have responsibility to you. You go to the association or you deal with that yourself. It's complex. It's really troubling. You always hear about, the unit owners are responsible for the drywall in. You have to double check that. You have to see exactly what it's like. And you have to realize that these property managers and boards, they don't want this liability. So they'll always say no. They're kind of like insurance companies in that way. You ever had experience in any of your condos, Mike, on things like that?
Oh, yeah, particularly after hurricanes. That's when you start seeing water and
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Yeah,
And
so
you're
this,
right. I mean, they always want to say it's not my responsibility. Don't accept that. I mean, you trust your gut feeling and look into it if it doesn't seem right.
well, and the thing that I'm also seeing, and this is kind of a different example, but it's the same issue. It's not always about principle. So principle is a very expensive endeavor to go after. People say it all the time. It's not the money, it's the principle of the matter. That's very dangerous. In my case, it was a $1,500 deductible versus a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 lawsuit. Even if I could do it myself, it would have been 6 to 12 months of fighting in court. That's a disaster. I'd rather spend the $1,500. But in this case, with this lawsuit, it was the whole unit. It wasn't a $1,500 deductible. It was every room in their unit was filled with sewage, and the association was just so awful about saying no, 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 that they had no other choice. They had to go to a lawsuit. And maybe the insurance company kicked in, and maybe there was some other stuff going on, but the lawsuit was the only way they could get the board to really make this whole. And the cost was so much that it was kind of necessary. So principles are tough, but in this case, it was a principled thing, and the situation was so bad that they really didn't have any other option. I had another situation, Mike. It's a local HOA. It's not a condo. It's an HOA, and they're thinking about doing some sort of capital improvement. And I think there are. My math might be wrong, but let's say there are 1,000 or 2,000 homes in this association. So it's a very large master community. And there's planning on spending like $200,000 or $300,000 on a capital improvement. Either they're fixing up they're adding something, they're adding more tennis courts, or they're a pool, or whatever it may be. And there's this whole subset of homeowners, maybe 50 homeowners, that are like, this is outrageous, we don't need it, what a waste of money. And they're honestly, it's the principle of the matter. This is awful. We shouldn't be spending all this money. Well, I did the math for them. And this is where you'll have to give me some latitude because I don't remember exact numbers. It came out to about $100 per home in additional costs. $100. So yes, it's $200,000-$300,000 in improvements, but the actual cost to each homeowner was $100. So I said, yes, it's principle. Yes, this seems wasteful. Yes, all those things are correct. But is it worth it to you to fight? It may not be. Not to hire a lawyer. If you hire a lawyer, each of you are going to be spending $1,000 for, so you have 50 people, you'll all be spending $1,000 each. And maybe you win, maybe you lose, who knows? But wouldn't you just rather spend $100 and at least get the improvement? The board has a lot of latitude to do these sorts of things, even if you disagree with why they're doing it. If they have the authority to do it and they're not committing fraud, you kind of have to understand the risk reward there. You ever heard any stories like that, Mike?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little freaky. It's a little freaky. Um, let's see. I've got the next topic. You ready for the next topic?
What you got?
All right. I'm curious if you've heard about this one. This is a new law or a House bill that was recently adopted. Adopts broad changes to homeowner associations throughout the state, effective July 1st, which is coming up in a couple of weeks. House Bill 1203 provides a comprehensive overhaul of many issues affecting HOAs, including director education, records maintenance, and meeting requirements and fines. While there are many changes, the following outline the highlights of those changes. So I think this is a really valuable law. I'm very excited to see what kind of progress we make with this. And maybe we won't make any, I don't know, but I think it's coming from the right place. We'll see if it's truly effective. So architectural, construction improvement, and other similarly tasked committees must provide owners with written notice of the rule or covenant relied upon to deny the owner's request. You cannot do this haphazardly. They're going to make these associations follow the rules, provide notice, give homeowners the right. Overall, this law is meant to take some of the leverage away from property managers. Interior modifications, I thought this was very interesting. Prevents the enforcement of a rule or covenant restricting what can be done inside the property that is not visible. So the associations, even if they have a rule in their covenants saying that you need to get architectural approval for new flooring, this would make that unconstitutional and invalid. So I really like that rule. I think that's smart, especially for condos as well. Revised fines adds new requirements to the fining process for HOAs, such as committee providing notice within 7 days of a hearing, requiring fines for violations that are cured prior to the hearing cannot be imposed. So if they cure the issue for the fine, the reason for the fine before the hearing, then they can't actually collect that fine. Providing a 30-day window for the payment of all fines. So they can't just restrict and kind of enforce fine, not give you the right to appeal it. I like all that. Parking restrictions, director education, website and digital records. I like the website and digital records one. All HOAs that contain 100 parcels or more must maintain a website and host digital copies of most of the association's official records, including notices of meetings. That's huge. I love that. So cool. And there are different rules based on how big your community is. There's like under 100, over 100, over 1,000. There's a lot more to this law. We'll have to wait and see, if it actually makes its way to law, but it looks pretty encouraging that we'll have a little bit more help in trying to get information about these associations and maybe take away some of the leverage that they have over innocent homeowners. So I think that's pretty cool. I got another one. You ready? Yeah, this is gonna be like fire. You ready for this, Mike?
Go for it.
All right, so the next one we've got is something that came up yesterday. Let's see if I have it still. I think I do have it. I think I spelled furniture wrong, but you'll have to give me a break. Share the screen. Here it comes. All right, so this scenario is something that I really like. You'll hear, this maybe will be surprising to some people, but almost everyone thinks that a pre-closing occupancy, every lawyer will tell them, no, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. I kind of disagree. There are circumstances where I actually prefer a pre-closing occupancy. And one of them is like if the person's wanting, hey, I just need some help. I need to be able to put the furniture somewhere or so on and so forth. This could help you do that without giving the seller any real problems. In addition to that, it actually could provide some benefits towards your closing. So in this case, if you need something like this, email me. I'll be happy to share this with you. But basically, it's an amendment that you can add to either a FAR bar or a NABOR contract or any contract. Buyer may place furniture in the property according to the terms stated herein and prior to the closing date for a period from the date of occupancy through and including closing date. The parties agree this pre-closing occupancy arrangement is not a lease, so on and so forth. I took a lot of the language from the neighbor pre-closing occupancy addendum, but we shrunk it to be specifically for furniture. Buyer will complete any desired inspections. This is the part that I really like for a seller. Buyer will complete any desired inspections provided for in the contract prior to occupancy. Upon occupancy of the property, buyer accepts the property in as-is condition and waives any and all of buyer's remaining contract contingencies and all remedial action obligations of seller or credit in lieu thereof, except those agreed to by seller in writing prior to buyer's occupancy. So I went through that pretty quickly, but what it means is typically in a neighbor and FAR contract, the seller has the obligation to maintain the property. It's the maintenance obligation. But if you agree to a pre-closing occupancy, the buyer waives that requirement. Now that is totally on to the buyer. So if the dishwasher breaks prior to closing, but after occupancy, then that's the buyer's problem. It's not the seller's. There's no, HVAC breaking or not working. I mean, as long as there's not fraud or something else where the seller agreed to fix the air conditioning, then the buyer takes on that liability. And that's a huge benefit to a seller, especially if it's really just furniture. There's no risk that they're going to be sleeping there at night. And in fact, you can shrink it even more, and you could be where they put it only in the garage. So you're doing a nice thing for the buyer. You're getting some benefit as the seller because there's no maintenance obligation. And yeah, there's always a chance that a buyer gets cold feet and walks away, but actually I think this is less likely that that would happen. I think that more likely the buyer is going to now go through with it because all their stuff is there. And then the final part on here at the very bottom, buyer shall indemnify and hold seller harmless against any claims, loss, or damage arising from buyer's occupancy of the property. This is a pretty clean way to do it. If you have something like this, you're welcome to reach out to me and I'll send you a copy. You can have this for any of your contracts that you're doing. Any thoughts on that, Mike? You like that one?
Yeah, where that helps is occasionally we'll get a closing that gets delayed, and yet the buyer has everything in a moving truck that's already pulled up to the house.
Yeah.
And they're like, what do I do with all this?
Yeah.
And I could see where that form would be very helpful if the seller is agreeable to it.
Yeah, we see this a lot when, let's say we have a closing on Friday, the lender screws up, something delays closing to Monday, but the buyer's in a pickle. They've got stuff, they sold their other house, and they're really just asking for some kindness. They're asking for all that stuff. And so this maybe gives your seller the ability to be kind without sacrificing too much. Someone asked in the comment about insurance. So we typically require a buyer to get rental insurance if they're going to be living in the property. Maybe there's a higher risk of a fire or a leak, something like that. But I actually removed that from this amendment. I didn't think it was relevant. If something were to happen on the property and the furniture gets destroyed, so be it. The seller should have their homeowner's insurance. It just wouldn't cover the personal property. And the amendment talks to that point. It indemnifies the seller against the loss of any damages to the personal property. So you could add the furniture or the insurance into that. I chose to take it out. Danielle, you're welcome to email me. I'll send you a copy, no problem. I just like that. We did that for a client yesterday, and it actually got the deal done. They sent it to me today. It's a binded contract, and the buyer was thrilled. It built a lot of goodwill between the buyer and seller, as opposed to simply saying, my attorney says no. That, sometimes it's okay to say yes. Sometimes. All right, let's see. House bill. Oh, this kind of goes, Mike, you and I talked about this yesterday. Can you tell us the question you had? You said you had an agent doing a wonderful job. She'd actually found out that almost, what was it, 4 different people had tried to scam a vacant lot listing. And she had kind of
Actually,
picked
that
each
was
one of them.
interesting. Your answer was not what I was expecting, but
Okay, talk to me. I want to hear it.
the question was, the agent called me up and said that I've had 4 people, bogus sellers, approach me about listing their lot for sale. Should I call the real owner and let them know what's going on? And I thought, immediately my hat goes on as far as worrying about liability, et cetera. But what was your answer, Christian?
So I said, absolutely. And for 2 reasons. One, you want to be able to help the seller, the real seller, avoid this happening to them again. That's just a common courtesy. You're trying your best to avoid these kinds of lawsuits, or not lawsuits, but vacant scams. You're trying your best, and you don't want this seller to be a victim. It doesn't help them, it doesn't help you. So number one, avoid them being a victim. Give them the information, send them a letter, give them a call, whatever is easiest. My office, we usually send a letter to the address listed at the county appraiser website. But I also thought there's a second benefit to that, which is now maybe they can trust you. Now you have one more person that's going to be in your phone as a contact. You know a little bit more about this property, and maybe they want to sell. Maybe they ask you for a referral to an attorney to help them with the scam. Maybe, and now they start to build this trust. And personally with my business, I want to earn your trust. If I earn your business later, great, that's amazing. But if I can earn your trust, that is huge. And I thought this would be a cool way, kind of a lead generation, even if you didn't intend for it. It's definitely could benefit you in your business.
Yeah,
But
the
I don't think
buzzwords,
there's liability. I think you're actually reducing the liability by reaching out to this seller.
the buzzwords nowadays is showing the consumer your value, and I can't imagine a better way of showing that lot owner the value of
Yeah,
what you're bringing to their attention.
exactly. Value proposition. All right, I got one more thing and then we'll call it a day. I got a call yesterday or 2 days ago on a homestead question. And I thought this was very interesting. So the seller is in a tough financial position, has an incredible property that they could rent out for, I don't know, $10,000, $20,000 a month. And so they think, all right, well, let me rent it out. And they call their favorite realtor. They get the realtor to put it on the market. And then the realtor thought, wait a second, could this give them problems for their homestead? Yes, they need the money, but if they lose their homestead exemption, that could really hurt them. And I don't want to do that. I don't want any liability on us, but I also want to make sure I'm looking out for the owner of this property. And that's incredible, honestly, because it takes, kind of thinking through all the way. And you, in the very least, you're issue spotting. Wait, maybe this is an issue. Maybe I'm overthinking it. But if this is an issue, I don't want anything to happen to us or the owner of this property. So here's how we did it. And honestly, I think what I'm going to do, Mike, I'm going to see if I can do this quick. Share screen. This is a property here in Collier County. You go to the Collier County website. It is collierappraiser.com. And this was the exercise I did with the realtor yesterday. We went to the property, we searched the database, we found it. This is the opening page to that property card. On the bottom here, let me see if I can do annotate again. Okay, so down at the bottom, I need a different color, I think.
We can see it.
Okay, good. So this bottom here, this is what I want you to look at first. And so you've got your market value, which is 775.7, right? So that's what the county is appraising the house at. However, because of their homestead exemption, they have this Save Our Homes. This is how much the value of their Save Our Homes exemption, their homestead exemption. So this is how much their homestead exemption is worth according to the assessed value. So if you notice, yeah, the property's worth 775, but if you minus out that Save Our Homes exemption, this is what they're getting taxed on, 134,000. So what is that worth? And that was the first thing we did. We evaluated what is the value of that homestead exemption. It's 640 times the millage rate divided by 1,000. So if we divide it by 1,000, that's 640 times, let's just round up to 10. That's a $6,400 savings every year for that homestead exemption. That's the value of that homestead exemption. And that's what we're risking by renting it out. And that is the question, that is the answer. That's what you tell the owner of the property. Look, if we rent it out, worst case scenario, assuming there's nothing else going on, that's what you would be losing. You would lose your homestead exemption, which is saving you about $6,400. But I think we can earn a lot more than that by renting it out. Let's say we accept a 6-month rental at $10,000 a month. That could be, and maybe this property is not worth it. This is not the property we were discussing. Say it's $5,000 a month. $5,000 a month for 6 months. That's $30,000 in income. Yes, we would lose the $6,400 in savings. Still makes sense. That's, almost 25 grand in income that you didn't have otherwise. So that being said, now we go to the second stage. We go to, let's see, take that out.
Let me ask you this, Christian.
Okay.
Let's say that happened and they rented it out.
Rent it
Lost
out.
the homestead exemption. And let's say they decided after the end of the year, they're not going to rent it again. Would they have to reapply for the homestead exemption and then it'd be at the higher base?
Good question. Actually, in your scenario, you wouldn't lose the exemption. So this is also on the assessor website. I would take a minute to look at it if you find yourself in this situation. But it basically says, if you rent it out just for that first year, as long as January 1, you meet all the conditions for homestead exemption, you get it. So for January 1, Mike, you owned your house, it was your primary residence, you were living there. So you get your exemption for all of 2024. But now it's June and you call me and you say, Christian, I want to rent it out. And I got someone that'll rent it out for the next 6 months. So they're going to rent it out from June to the end of December. And it's a one-time deal. They're going to give me 50 grand and I'm just going to go live with my daughter. Hopefully she doesn't hear that. So I'm like, and you ask me, would I lose my exemption? I tell you, no, you wouldn't. If this is a one-time deal, that first year, you don't lose the homestead exemption. You got it in 2024. Come 2025, you and Ruth are moving back into the house. You didn't lose your exemption. It didn't cost you a dime until that same tenant comes to you and says, Mike, we want to rent it for 6 months the next year as well. We want to rent in 2025. That's when you lose your exemption. That's when you would lose your exemption. And then you could reapply. You would reapply for 2026. And you could actually port some of your savings from the prior exemption into the new one, but probably not the whole thing. In that case that we were looking at, the owner of the property has a $640,000 savings, and they can only port $500,000. So they would lose some of that exemption when they reapply later. So it's a little confusing. We actually wrote a lot of articles. We did another video. The whole video was on Homestead. So if you want, feel free to look at those, or I can send you prior articles. But it was a really interesting exercise because you really need to evaluate for your owner how much is at risk. What's at risk if the county really does take away the exemption? That's it, Mike. That's all I got.
You had a lot of topics today. Very interesting.
I'm glad you enjoyed it. I had one other comment from Tammy. Tammy mentions about the 6 month and a day to make a property homestead. Interestingly, that is not the rule. You can get homestead even if you're only here for 6 weeks. So that 6 month and a day rule is more for other states. So New Jersey cares where you're spending 6 months in a day for income taxes, but that's not the same thing as homestead. So it is a different thing. In fact, maybe we'll have to do another video on that at another time. I wish you luck and happy Juneteenth, Mike. Go back home, would you?
Sounds good.
Bye,
Take care.
guys.